Ravens flock, we're off and running on a Monday. It's August 26th. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, always joined by my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, who held it down over the weekend. Special thanks to Jason Smith from Huddle It Up Films for popping on with you, Sarah, to talk a little bit about what was a difficult conversation because of what took place in the preseason finale. But roster projections, of course, that was what you guys dove into, because tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, rosters need to be trimmed from 90 to 53. So first and foremost, thanks to Jason. Thanks to you for getting after it. Had an awesome wedding weekend, and we got a lot to discuss today, including the topic of offensive line, remembering and celebrating the life and legacy of Joe D'Alessandris, who passed on Sunday morning. Just took a leave from the team just a matter of weeks ago. And so, of course, we'll try our best to honor him, Sarah. I know we have just a tremendous amount of respect for him, the man that he was, not just as a coach, but as a teacher, as a grandfather, as a father, as a human being. So that'll be two of the many things that we discuss over the next hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, it looks like you've gotten a little sun over the weekend while you're at the wedding, little golf, a little boating, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to have to get back out in the sun for myself. Yeah. But welcome back. But yeah, as you said, lots to get to, like lots of news. Then obviously we need to react to Joe D. That, hated seeing that come through. I got the email from the Ravens in the statement. That's where I first learned about it. I was hoping
punch, right?
What's that?
It's a gut punch, right?
It's a gut punch. That's exactly what it is. So react to that, get some of the player reactions, and then we got some thoughts, some more detailed thoughts on the 53. Since we're a few days removed, we got maybe slightly more information and some opinions out there on what goes on, especially at running back. We got a great report from the Baltimore Sun on Keaton Mitchell. Some information that I didn't know concerning what the extent of the damage was in his knee, and a potential timeline for his return.
Yeah, but let's begin with that offensive line, because probably the biggest question mark, are we calling it right now, going into not only roster cut day, but even week one, which is less than 2 weeks out, what we know now. So Jeff Sarebek of The Athletics' latest is something that I know you were reading through and combing through earlier today. So why don't you lead the charge?
Yeah, so Jeff he's had 10 thoughts leading into roster cut downs. Go check that out in The Athletic. He kind of made the point before he broke, I don't know if broke some news, but made some news. He made the point that usually the Ravens keep 10 offensive linemen, Bobby. He says this year in particular, with so much uncertainty about the performance of the starters, it might make sense to keep an extra lineman or two. So he says everybody's looking for quality offensive linemen, so it's hard to sneak them through waivers and get them back to the practice squad. He said the question is, do the Ravens even have 10 offensive linemen on their roster who deserve to make the 53? What's funny, Bobby, is when Jason and I were making our predictions, it was actually fairly easy for me to do the offensive line. A lot of times it's harder because I don't know, wait, should I put this guy on and then maybe give a spot to somebody else? What made it somewhat difficult was Samac and his injury. But prior to that, because I was putting my 53 together, it was like, okay, it's kind of easy because like there's not like big time competition. It just seemed like 10. But to Jeff's point, like, are the 10 even really worthy? Yeah, you got, of course, Ronnie and Andrew Voorhees, Tyler Linderbaum, Daniel Falele, Roger Rosengarten, Patrick McCary, they're all locks. And then he says, presumably Josh Jones and Ben Cleveland will make the team. I think the only way Cleveland doesn't is if he's traded. You're not just going to outright cut him. And then maybe Nick Samac goes on IR. Who knows what's going to happen there? And then Jeff says the next two up would seemingly be Salah Amuvai-Laulu, who didn't have a great summer, and Tayshawn Manning, who barely played Saturday. So he says that's why a depth trade for an offensive lineman has the potential if the Ravens can find anybody available. So he's saying, not even sure all 10 of these guys are worthy of a 53-man roster, which brings us into what he says about Eric DeCosta. He said, I expect DeCosta to be active over the next 3 days and looking at external options to improve the back end of the roster. Whether that's making waiver claims, engineering a small trade, or even signing a street free agent, there are different ways to do it. And he says this, In talking to a few sources outside the building, they believe DaCosta will be aggressive. That's the word. He will be aggressive, particularly in trying to improve the team's offensive line depth. Then Jeff says, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a repeat of 2017 when the Ravens made small trades for center Luke Buonco and guard tackle Tony Bergstrom right around cutdown day. I don't expect they'll be able to acquire a guy who's going to start in week 1, who is trading a starting caliber offensive lineman at this time of the year anyway. But I could see them trying to upgrade the 8th and 9 offensive line spots. And Bobby, that's certainly going to be important. So Jeff is expecting an aggressive Eric DaCosta over the next 3 days.
Well, which kind of brings us to like, all right, well, what type of players could be involved here? We know that it's been mixed messaging, to say the very least, or perhaps the better phrase is like vague messaging surrounding their vision for Ben Cleveland at this point, whose future in Baltimore after this year probably won't exist, you would think. But you kind of went right to Jeff publicly on Twitter, and we know Jeff is extremely responsive, not just to you, but to really any of his followers who reach out to him. I think that's why he's just so dang consistent and relied upon. One of the many reasons. I mean, he's a talented writer first and foremost, but he's plugged in. And so you hit him up on X and you say, hey, I'm curious your perspective on why you think Ben Cleveland hasn't gotten much of a chance to compete for starting right guard this summer.
Right.
And
like not even like not a single starting snap at right guard. Like not a single one. When after the draft, all of us were projecting, okay, he's probably the next man up as the 4th year guy that they've been developing this whole time. And he got plenty of snaps and some starting experience last year when Zeitlin went down. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Jeff's response to you, he said, I think his floor is a bit higher than some of the other guys, given his experience, even if his ceiling isn't. But there's clearly a difference in opinion and how well outsiders think he's played and how well they, the Ravens, think he's played. And practice habits, physicality come into play as well. What was your thought on that?
My thought was the last line holds more weight for me than the middle part. Like I already knew the first part where he said the floor is higher, right? I've been saying that all off season. Bare minimum, you know what you can get from Cleveland. That's the floor. Now, that's why I don't blame them for experimenting with Fa'alele or some others, because it's like, well, could their ceilings be better, right? Well, so far, the answer is no, right? Like Cleveland would be better. And then he says there's a difference in opinion. Now, he and some other tweets answering some, because this started a firestorm of people asking him more questions about this, and I didn't pull them all in. But he kind of said elsewhere, like in terms of physicality, right? Like, does he play to his size? Does he punish people the way you would want him to? So that's kind of that he went into that. Then it was the practice habits thing that was like, that's huge to me, because that's telling because it's like we've seen what he can do against starters in the regular season, and he's not a Pro Bowler, but he can hold his own. And you're not like biting your fingernails when he's in there, right? Whereas like with some of the guys they have right now, and again, they're brand new to these positions, both Fa'alele and Voorhees. Voorhees, it's his position, but he's basically a rookie. Fa'alele, it's a brand new position for him. So you're kind of biting your fingernails a little bit like, are you going to get any push on this run? You know, they have played well in pass pro. So that tells me, and I said this to him in a follow-up, but I was like, okay, well, that's going to put anybody in a coach's doghouse. Like if you got poor habits. Now in terms of physicality, Fa'alele doesn't seem to have as much as we all expected, right? I watched film on him again. Some plays he's not continuing to drive his feet once he's got somebody. He tries to use his weight and lean into him. That lets a defensive lineman get out of it, you know? Like you got to keep driving your feet. And so anyway, I asked Jeff, so do you think the decision is pretty much made? Is it Daniel week 1? So basically I'm like, is there any way, since you already know what Cleveland's floor is there any way that you could still pull a bait and switch? He said they could always backtrack next week and say, let's play it safe and put Cleveland back at right guard. And he'd have a week and a half to settle in. Then he goes on, but nobody else has gotten a chance and we're 24 hours away from their final preseason game. I asked him before the game. You'd think that would have happened by now.
Yeah. Right.
And so another fan followed up, and I thought this was telling. He's like, but didn't he? A fan thought that Powers or Simpson both just came in last minute, and Jeff was like, no. And I went and I checked the game books from NFL GSIS. He is correct. Jeff said Simpson started the first 2 preseason games, and then initially Saleh had become. Remember we were talking about him getting those reps at, I believe it was right guard. But then they switched mid-camp and put in Powers. And then I looked up the books. He definitely started during some preseason games. So there is not a precedent, which still doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but there's not a precedent where it was like you had guys in there and then didn't give them any preseason starts.
Sure. But moral of the story here, I guess, is to put a bow on the offensive line conversation, is that maybe over the next week and a half, that's where Eric decides to be. I mean, the word that we have in the headline there and that was used in the report is aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So could a Ben Cleveland be used in a package? Could a Charlie Kohler be used in a package? Where do they have the most abundance, overabundance of depth?
Mm-hmm.
Tight end, probably more so than any other position group. So we've seen it before happen with EDC this time of year. It's never anything blockbuster this time of year. That's typically pre-trade deadline or in season or, free agency or whatnot. But so.
No, I think that's really, you're exactly right on with where there's an overabundance, and that's where you could use it. Now, just to not totally end on a sour note, as we transitioned it to Joe D, just two notes to remember that, perhaps the sky isn't falling. Again, film coming out of the 3rd preseason game, pass protection, good. It's good. I mean, remember the Tylan Wallace touchdown catch. Josh Johnson had a beautiful pocket, like one of those pockets where it's like, is Alabama playing some D3,
clean.
Just like just clean, beautiful bubble, right? So that side is good. Run blocking, not as good, but as Jonas Schaefer kind of puts out there, he's like, one reason for hope with Ravens run blocking. In the 2022 preseason, they ranked 28th in average yards before contact per carry in the first half. And so that's with starters and the other team's top reserves. Then he said in the regular season, they were 3rd. So they went from 28th in average yards before contact to 3rd. And then he said this preseason, they're currently 28th. So same as the 22 season. Can Lamar lift them again? And by the way, this time you have Derrick Henry. So let's not get too crazy. I mean, if you want to see one being better than the other, you definitely like that pass pro, considering what Lamar and Derrick Henry can do. And I thought I had one other note. Oh, maybe I put it at the end. Gordon McGinnis said with Fa'alele, he's like, let's just not forget how good Daniel has been in pass protection. Like he just wanted to reemphasize that it's been very good. So 2 positive notes to kind of end on with the offensive line. There it is.
There he is. Big number 77.
Yeah, he says it's only preseason, caveat aside. Of course, you got to put that out there. He said, I don't think how good Daniel Fa'alele has looked in pass pro on the Ravens offensive line is being talked about enough.
Yeah.
So.
And Sarah, before we transition to Joe D, and of course would love to get some thoughts from the live chat as well that we can bring up on the screen to celebrate him accordingly. Just a real quick call to action from Blue Wire, which is our podcast distribution site. And being that football season's right here, that's when we're most visible. That's when we're most engaged with. Obviously, this is our bread and butter over the next 6 months. If you guys wouldn't mind taking a minute or 2 out of your day, whether it's mid-show, post-show, later in the week, whenever, to fill out a survey link. A consumption survey link with a chance to win. The good news for you is that you get a chance to win $500. But basically for us, if you just fill out your consumption habits, it's a really simple survey. It allows our brand sponsors to get valuable information about the way that you guys consume us. And ultimately it helps us out throughout the season, land different partnerships, which allows us to continue to doing what we're doing on a yearly basis. So there's a link that's included in the top of the show notes below. If you take a couple minutes, we'd really appreciate it. And I'll actually drop that into the live chat right now if you guys want to pop on and do it mid-show. So
Yeah.
thanks
Please
in
do that
advance.
survey.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you guys in advance. But wow. So Sunday morning, the Ravens announced that just a couple weeks since taking his extended leave, Joe D passed in the early morning hours of Sunday, August 25th. And John Harbaugh, the first to release a statement, he wrote that Coach Joe D was a man of integrity and a man of faith. He made us all better. He was our reader at Team Mass, and he was loved by all here. He was a great coach and a good man, the kind of person who you are honored to have as a friend. He raised 3 incredible, beautiful daughters, and he was the most loving husband. His grandkids also adored him. I admired him, loved him, and I'm going to miss him because Joe D was a joy. Tony, his late wife, has him back now. May God bless Joe D forever. One of the many statements to have been released by the team, Sarah. But when you saw this news, like we said earlier on in the show off the top, it was a gut punch. But I figured it'd be good to kind of remember him, celebrate him, and take some thoughts from our listeners as well.
Yeah, and there was lots of reaction from players, right? Like it poured in on Twitter from various people. You got it here. I'll let you take it.
Yeah, and this is just like you said. This is only one screen full.
Yeah.
I couldn't fit all of them on there because they were pouring in. And this guy's spent his entire life in and around football, in and around the NFL. So I tried to keep it Ravens centric here, past and present. Tylan Wallace says a great coach, but an even better man. Marquise Brown, fly high, Joe D. Love this guy. Roger Rosengarten, gonna miss you, coach. Say hello to Tony for me. Again, his late wife who passed in 2022. Mrs. EDC, my heart breaks for every Raven. He loved his team and they loved him more. Rest in peace, Joe D. We got it from here. Promise. Ronnie Stanley, I'll never forget that laugh. Thank you, Coach D. Chuck Smith, Ravens outside linebackers coach. Blessed to spend time and learn from this great man. Joe D, you will be missed. Former Raven, Geno Stone, now with Cincinnati, says RIP coach, Western PA legend. Both of those guys have Pennsylvania roots. PQ, RIP Joe D, great coach, even better person. There were some other tributes that came in as well from past players. I thought Matt Skura's former Ravens center was particularly powerful. I'll read quickly through this. Matt says, there are a few special people that go beyond the call of coach and impact your life the way Joe D did for me. Him and I quickly bonded over being born in Pittsburgh and our time at Duke. He coached with the values he learned from working in the paper mills of toughness, hard work, grit, and brought an old school lunch pail mentality every day. You knew you were going to get coached hard, but it came from a place of love and his desire to bring out your best. He created a belief in me that set the foundation for my professional career. Joe D and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and it will be a conversation I'll always remember and cherish. It was what we always talked about: life, family, and football. He was truly invested in all his players' lives and cared about how they grew as men. Our conversations would make my day and made me feel everything was going to be okay. Coach D, we will miss your laughs, stories, and loving spirit. Thank you for making me a better husband, father, and person that you touched. I don't know how I got through that. Matt is an incredible writer. I feel it right now. Or do you feel it?
I feel it. Yeah.
This is a tough loss for the organization, for people that have spent time in the organization like yourself, for his players, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of players that he's touched over the course of his life. And again, Joe D, as of Sunday morning at 70, passes just 2 years after losing his wife. But as Roger said, now they're back together.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's and I know that Coach D was a man of faith, as John Harbaugh pointed out, that he would be the guy to read at mass and say, do the prayers and all that kind of stuff. And he just had such a warm personality, right? You could even see it when he was doing pressers, just the way he smiles. Everybody has a story of how like Jody is checking up on your family and making sure that you're doing okay. And I do remember reading stories about after Tony, his wife, had passed, that it was just like obviously hard on him. And I mean, they were married for 42 years. Is that the right number? Somewhere around 40. Certainly high. And but But I love that image, Bobby. I love that image because he missed her so much, and I know he believed this, and I know I believe this. To that reunion has got to be amazing, right? It's
Yeah.
got to be amazing. Um, and it does bring a lot of comfort. That just reminds me, I remember, and everybody's kids kind of go through this. They realize that your parents are mortal. And I remember my son Aiden, when he was like, I don't know, he must have been like 7 or 8, like really distraught, realizing that maybe me or my husband could die one day.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, listen, remember how me and dad came to earth first and we got your nursery
Yeah.
ready? We had a bed ready for you. We had everything ready for you and your welcoming here on earth. And I said, once me and dad go, the way it should be, we should go before you. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to make everything ready and we welcome you. And as an adult and you're whatever it is needed, we'll welcome you on the other side. And that brought him so much comfort. And I hope that all these grandchildren right here, this legacy that he and Tony leave behind, his legacy will never be forgotten because of everything he's done in football. These beautiful grandchildren, his 3 daughters, and I hope that they find comfort knowing that he and their grandma are back together again, and will be prepared to welcome them on that side just as they were on this side.
Yeah, nice tribute by you there on the screen from Twitter yesterday, and there, like you said, he and his grandkids. Man, can you imagine having Joe D as a grandfather? I'm not sure it gets any better. And I think what James Hurst, former Raven, said really well was sort of like the flip that gets switched, right? From sort of yes, teacher, but an intense teacher out on the field, to then actually go in the facility and check up on you, the person, check up on you, the man, the human being. I think is an amazing dichotomy that's not always seen in NFL circles because of the intensity of it, because of the macho nature that comes along with football. And I thought James did a good job here. So he wrote, and Ryan Mink shared this on social. James said, Joe D has an unmatched love for his players in the game. Many people don't know or understand the sacrifices that coaches make when they commit to a team, but he made the most of those sacrifices. You could always count on him to bring passion and energy into the building with him. Even the dog days of training camp couldn't deter him from coaching as hard as he could every single day. But more importantly, Coach had a unique ability to flip a switch as soon as we left the field. He cared about every facet of his players' lives. He always remembered my family members' names and asked me about them frequently. He talked life with us and wanted to know what made each of us tick. Even after I moved on to play with the Saints, Joe D would occasionally send a text checking in or congratulating me on some win or other accomplishment. Joe D had a huge impact on my career as a player, but the reasons I'll remember and cherish him had nothing to do with football. He will be greatly missed, and I send my sincerest condolences to his family and all those who loved him. So, just sort of a well-written tribute there from James Hurst. And just personally, Sarah, having lived in Fells Point up until this past winter, I have fond memories of running into he and at the time when Tony was still around and wheelchair ridden, the two of them would be walking in Fells Point together on a random, say, off-season Sunday evening, and the two of them, just like you said, that there's that warmth, and Joe was clearly her caretaker towards the end of her life, and yet the generosity of the time spent together and the mutual interest in terms of I want to talk to him about football. I want to talk to him about him.
Right.
But then, as Jeff Zaribek wrote on Twitter, it got to the point where like, no, I want to know about your kids, Jeff.
Right.
Joe's like, no, I want to know about your kids. Like, you're writing the feature on me, but I want to know about your kids. And that's what I was like too. I don't have kids, but it was like he wants to know about my life, my career, things of that nature. And so it's just he took selflessness to a whole new level. And I know you and I certainly, speak for our audience, everybody who loved him, when we say that hopefully everybody in the Ravens organization and his people and his players are doing okay in what's been, I'm sure, a really difficult 24 plus hours.
Just like with Jacoby, where I know this season will be dedicated to him. We're going to add Joe D to that. Obviously, I know they're going to fight for him and just do everything they can. And I mean, it's a major loss. It's a major loss as a father and as a grandfather, as a coach. This offensive line has been in such good hands for many years. And the Ravens are going to miss him, and we're going to miss him.
And the live chat doing a great job of honoring him as well. Tila says having a coach is like having another parent, praying for all of them.
Well
Certainly,
said.
certainly. I saw a few others as well. RNTY1 says, tell your parents, grandparents you love them. I'll leave it there. Solo Dolo says, I wasn't scared of death till I held my daughter, who's now 5, and I've never been more scared to leave her behind now, and hopefully not for a long, long time. Amen to that. Amen to that. Michael says, I remember when you all were talking about him on here last week and was really hoping he'd pull through. RIP, Coach Joe D. The last week, and he said he was just texting with his daughters and that everything was looking okay, but things can turn on a dime, especially when you're 70.
Yeah.
And we don't know what illness it was. They referred to it as an acute illness, so we don't know specifically, but clearly it was aggressive.
He had surgery. He had surgery on it over the summer. Or during the offseason, they were hoping that was going to take care of it. But yeah.
Ravens need to dedicate the season to Coach Joe D and Jacoby, one subscriber says.
Yep.
E-Man, RIP, Coach Joe D. And so, yeah, they're all flooding in, guys. Thank you for helping us honor truly, truly great person. And we'll certainly follow whatever the Ravens have in store plans-wise to honor both Joe D and Jacoby this upcoming season. As far as Joe D's concerned, they can first and foremost honor him by putting forth some dominant offensive line work in less than 2 weeks, and that'll be a good place to start.
So somebody in the comments say angels in the outfield. We're going to need that angels on the offensive line for sure.
There you go.
So, yeah.
So you were reading Brian Wacker's latest on the Sun.
Yes, he had some really good information that I had not heard before on Keaton Mitchell. So I'll read. He did this really long feature story on Keaton. So for sure, go over there to the Baltimore Sun. I pulled out about 5 or 6 paragraphs to kind of dig into here. But he kind of opened the story talking about how, they've seen Keaton Mitchell. He's been out of practice a lot, right? He's always on the sidelines of the field. He's been very visible. I've seen lots of pictures. We've seen him in videos coming out from the team. He's been out there. But they know that it's been rough on him. And they talked, Brian from the Sun talked to Anthony Mitchell, who's obviously a former Raven and Keaton Mitchell's dad. And Anthony said, quote, when you talk about tough, man, he was in his feelings for a minute. He likes to be out there. He likes to work. He likes to grind. So it's been, as his dad recognizes there, that it's been tough. So Brian goes on to say it is difficult for perhaps the fastest player on the team and one of the speediest in the NFL to stay patient, even if he knows he has to be after suffering what one person in the Ravens building called a, quote, nasty torn ACL against the Jacksonville Jaguars on December 7th. The good news for Mitchell and Baltimore is that while 3 ligaments, Bobby, I did not know this, 3 ligaments and some cartilage needed to be surgically repaired, said there was no nerve damage or other complications. Okay, so I remember the only information we had really gotten on what the damage was is I just remember Harbaugh saying it was a clean tear.
Clean.
Yeah. Well, it was 3 ligaments and some cartilage, but no nerve damage.
Ugh.
So, but sometimes you don't know. I remember John saying that, like, it was very soon after the injury. And sometimes you don't know until the surgeons are in there to really know what the extent of the damage is. So there's that. And then Brian goes on to say, while it was initially believed that he would not be able to practice, not even practice, until early December of this year, Mitchell is ahead of schedule in his rehabilitation and could begin practicing as soon as about a month to 6 weeks into the season.
Okay, so that would be
let's look this up.
Early October.
Early October. Practicing in early October is much better than early December. Because there's no way you're going to hit 100%, even if you get to be activated at the end of December.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So if he's able to practice, obviously you don't want to risk anything. We're not saying to rush him out there or anything like that. But if he is ahead of schedule and is able to practice, mid-October, and then, you want to give him at least what's the rule? If you get activated to practice, you have a 21-day window. So then that could have him being activated in November.
Right. So
So,
let's say it's first week. Yeah, right. So let's say it's first week of October, start of November. That's 3 weeks out.
or mid-October if it's 6 weeks. So,
Right.
6 weeks, he's saying 6 weeks into the season. So we're starting that's the preseason. Okay, so we're starting September 5th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be October 13th
Yeah.
after the Commanders of that game.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a 21-day window. 1, 2,
Right.
3. Then maybe you're back for Bengals.
Right. So
Whoa! Look at that super chat. Sorry.
Tom Votto just dropped a $100 super chat donation, and Sarah just fell out of the chair. You know what's funny? You had that reaction. I was more like, "What's that color? I've never seen that color before."
Well, maybe they only get that color when we get $100 super chat. Holy moly!
Too funny, too funny. Tom, we'll bring you up as soon as we get to the quick hits. Thank you for your donation. That's hysterical. It is. So it's just for everybody who doesn't see what we're looking at on the back end. We have our screen on the left-hand side of or at least I do on my laptop. And then over on the right-hand side, we follow, the live chat that's cooking all show long. And all of a sudden this red square, like this block, this brick just shows up, and Tom Votto dropped a $100 donation with some questions that we're going to answer in a few minutes. So
Mr. Solodello joking. He's like, "Oh, he accidentally added another 9. He meant 9.99."
let's see you do that, Solo, huh?
Yeah. Can we have more accounting errors here?
That's funny.
Okay. Sorry to get. We'll come back to his question in
Yes.
quick hits, but
Yes.
your reaction, I guess, to all of this.
Yeah. Well, I guess just feels more thorough
Yep.
now, right? Feels a little bit more valid that this second half of the season is in reach. I really hope they don't rush him back. Thank you for the reminder on the activation from the pup list. There's that, that 3-week window of practice. So as soon as he does get activated off the physically unable to perform list, that window will begin. And let's see what they do with the rest of the running back room in the meantime. That was something that you and Jason talked about at length on Saturday. Too bad for Owen Wright. I was really bumming to see him go down.
Yep.
An undrafted rookie who, sure, had he made the team, sort of to your point the last couple of weeks, would he have been an integral part of the rushing attack? Probably not. He'd be a special teamer with an opportunity to get some carries here and there, I'm sure. But nonetheless, you hate to see that, especially from an undrafted guy who showed some pop in the preseason. So now his foot's broken. You got to move forward. We'll see what they do with the rest of the back, but with the rest of that room. But yeah, my biggest takeaway from Brian's piece is that we just now have it feels a little bit more concrete about his timetable. And then of course, how lucky it was that he walked away clean, being that there was significant amounts of tear. Like, okay, It was a clean tear, but there was a number of things that were torn. So, yeah.
Yeah. Just as a reminder, as to remember at this time last year, he's this undrafted rookie free agent. And I liked how Brian, oh, did I get it? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, my bad. I just loved that they went and talked to like Lamar to get like his reaction when he was thinking back to last season. And he's like, I wasn't familiar with him in camp. I seen him run a couple times and I'm like, dang. But in the preseason, when he actually got in the game, I said, he's going to be a problem. I'm seeing him burn guys on angles. Guys have great angles on him, and he still finds a way. Let me see. There's something blocking me here. I'm seeing him burn guys on angles. Guys have great angles on him, and he still finds a way to get in front of them and speed up. His acceleration is crazy. Then he has the speed to keep going. So hopefully he comes back to what we saw, I don't know that we're going to have that guy burning people on angles when they even have the angle and he still beats them to the corner. I don't think that we should be expecting that come December, but to have that speed and to pair it with Lamar and King Henry, potentially in December, it's going to make this run game nice.
To say he gave them a jolt last year would be an understatement.
Yeah.
He gave them a jolt. He gave them flavor. He gave them burst, yak. I mean, it was like a lightning bottle in the backfield when he started to become like an integral piece to what they were doing. And so I think we all just kind of sit here and hope that a fraction of that can be returned It may not be until 2025 in terms of like getting back to what he once was strength wise and cutting ability, and like you said, being able to kind of bounce to the outside and bounce off of opposing tacklers or whatever. But what we all want to see is just the duo that becomes him and King Henry because of the different blend of talents that those two possess.
Yeah. One other side note, as I was reading this, Brian noted that he didn't get any quotes from Keaton because while players are injured, the Ravens PR policy is that they can't speak with the media. So that's what I'm going to be telling myself, not that he stood us up, right? When he came into our comments, he's like, yeah, I'll come on the show. And then we lost him. We never got him back on. I forgot you're not allowed to do interviews while you're rehabbing.
Which is funny because maybe he was briefed on that when it all happened that day, because then I DM'd him right then and there and he got back to me and he's like, yeah, when are you trying to do it?
Yeah.
And then maybe he was like, oh wait, no,
I'm not allowed to. Yeah.
So, well, maybe once he gets himself right.
Yeah. So meanwhile, as we talked about with Owen Wright, and he fractured his foot, and John Harbaugh announced that it was broken, but then Jeff Zrebiec got more details in report saying that it was a fracture and it's not necessarily a season-ending one, but if they want to have him around, they got to have him on the initial 53, so that because if they put him on IR before the 53-man roster, unless he's designated to return, there's only 2 of those spots, then he would be out for the season. So they might want to keep that alive. But then he says it's current for that running back third position. I think this was an interesting note from Jeff. Its current internal options are 5th round rookie Rasheen Ali, undrafted rookie Chris Collier, and veteran John Kelly. And by the way, Jeff, like me, had predicted that Rasheen Ali will make the roster in that number 3 spot. But then he goes on to say, here's a thought. Do the Ravens really need a third running back on their initial 53-man roster? You could get away with keeping 2 or 3 running backs on the practice squad and using game day elevations for the first month plus of the season. That would limit your practice squad elevation flexibility, but that would be preferable to losing a player at another position who you couldn't hold on to because you kept a number 3 running back who wasn't in your roster plans. I agree. Like when you have, again, the third running back is not going to be carrying the ball. Okay. It's going to be Derrick Henry with a little Justice Hill sprinkled in. And so in our 53-man roster predictions, Jason and I were like, I was going back and forth on Bo Braid versus John Ross because I know those decisions are all about special teams. And so again, number 3 running back is going to be a special teams guy. But if you're looking at your running backs versus say what Bo Braid can do or what John Ross can do, then, and you feel like those 2 guys are better special teamers, then yeah, just keep 2 running backs, have a couple on the practice squad to elevate, and keep a guy like Bo Braid who, if you cut him, he's gone.
He's gone.
Right? He's gone. I originally had chosen John Ross over Bo Braid, and I thought Jason put a very compelling case to not do that because he'd be gone. And I have since gone back and watched the film from this last preseason game. With what he put out there, he is getting gobbled up. He is getting gobbled up, Bobby. There's no way he's going to be out there. So, but could you keep an Owen Wright? Like, could you keep a Collier around or a Kelly around or a Rasheen Ali around? I think so because they have nothing on tape. Nothing. You're going to lose Bo Braid. So I like where Jeff's at with this thought.
What a summer he had, Bo. I'm surprised he went undrafted. Honestly, I saw some grades that he was looked at higher regard than a Sanusi Kane was, and Sanusi's had himself a summer as well. That guy plays like a Raven. By the way, along the lines of these game day call-ups and practice squad elevations and things within those rules, this is going to be an important one. Tom Pelissero just tweeted out within the last 20 minutes an important note as teams construct their initial 53-man rosters. And if you caught up on Saturday's conversation after the final preseason finale that Jason and Sarah did, you know that they were not aware of this because it just came down today. So NFL teams were informed that the NFL Players Association has vetoed the revised emergency third quarterback rule that would have allowed teams to elevate a bona fide quarterback from the practice squad an unlimited number of times. So the rule reverted to the 2023 version, which says the emergency third quarterback must now be on the 53-man roster, not an elevation. So coming down to the wire here under 2 weeks out, and what we thought was going to be a revised rule, Sarah, is no longer.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. I guess they're vetoing it because you don't get paid as much on practice squad.
Probably. I'm sure there's some sort of player-friendly
I mean, do they think
influence
that
there.
that's? I mean, I guess it's going to give a couple guys a 53-man roster job, but I'll tell you what, I don't think that's going to change things in Baltimore.
Some people want it again. Let me read it
Leary?
again.
Okay, read it again.
Some people just want it again.
Okay.
So NFL teams were just informed that the Players Association vetoed the revised emergency third quarterback rule that would have allowed teams to elevate a quarterback from the practice squad an unlimited number of times throughout the season.
Right.
Instead, it reverted back to what it was last year, which says that the emergency third QB must be on the 53-man roster. The Ravens don't have a QB3 right now. I know they have guys in the building, but they don't
Nobody's
have
worthy
one.
of it. Nobody's worthy of it. Yeah.
They don't have one. So
Yeah.
but all that this means is that the roster, the daily roster the weekly roster gymnastics in season just became a little bit more. You got to be mindful of it a little bit more at quarterback, and in terms of your game day roster.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only your game day roster, but your 53-man roster.
Right.
Because
By tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you listen to our roster prediction show from Saturday, I felt very comfortable about just keeping two quarterbacks because I was like, there's no reason to have a third, like ever again. There would be no reason to have a third on there, which again is probably why the NFLPA is vetoing it, because they're like, oh, great. So now we're only ever going to have two quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, which means these guys will make less. So that definitely hurts teams. But even with this news, I do not think the Ravens are going to keep Leary or Emery or anybody as QB3 because A, they're just not worthy, and B, well, I guess that's just it. They're not worthy. Yeah. They're not worthy of the spot.
And truth bearer, it could be one less roster spot, but it doesn't have to be.
Correct.
So like Sarah's saying, this may not change their plans.
If they were nervous about losing Leary, for example, and they're like, and you really liked him, then it's like, oh crap, we got to give we would lose a lot roster spot because we got to give it to Leary. Yeah. But in the Ravens case this year, I don't think he's done anything that if you put him on the practice squad, anybody would be like, oh, we're taking him. Like he has not looked good. So for the Ravens, I don't think it makes a big impact this year, but it certainly could going forward. And it's not one less roster spot from years past. This was a new rule that was going to give them new flexibility. They've never had this flexibility before. Yep. So it was a new rule to give them flexibility, but that got taken out at the 11th hour.
Right. So Emory Jones and Devin Leary both expected to clear waivers, be on the Ravens practice squad. Mm-hmm. And this may not change anything in terms of the next 24 hours as they look to complete their 53-man rosters.
Correct.
Roster. One other note on Dalvin Cook that you added in here as well.
Well, just that while we're talking about, running back 3, Jeff went on to say, even if you did want to have a running back 3, he has said the same thing I said last week, that Dalvin Cook probably is not that guy. And he said the number 3 running back role was earmarked for a player who could provide depth and help out on special teams. That's not a role that suits Cook. And I said that last week and just wanted to point out that I'm not the only one.
Okay. All right. So should we talk about Bo Braid now?
Yeah, let's talk about him a little bit more because we were talking about maybe not having 3 running backs and this could open up a spot for him. So, man, I watched a film breakdown of Bo Braid's game against Green Bay. Dude was phenomenal. Okay, love his physicality and Sanusi Canes, by the way. These guys like to hit. They like to hit. Bo Braid looked to me for a second like PQ, A, because he had the number 6 going on, but B, because Bobby, the way he timed up, I don't know if you saw it with all the wedding, things going on.
Well, I saw it.
You saw it. The way he cut through the offensive line and perfectly timed getting to the running back in the backfield. I mean, the running back got the ball. Bo Braid was there, took his legs out from under him. I mean, it was like what PQ has done for many years. Knifed it. And it was one of my favorite things that PQ did.
Yeah.
So he goes and does that. Then his vision of the field as a safety was on display. Like the way he could just, cut through all the messiness that goes on and to know where to be with whether he's in man coverage or in zone. Then I liked his ball skills. They took an interception away from him, but the fact that he was even close in getting one, I like so much of what he put on tape. Then on top of it, and by the way, courtesy to Coach Evans, who I watched him do the tape. He also pointed this out, and I went and grabbed this from PFF. At Maryland, Bobby, how they always say the more you can do, we like our players to be versatile. Check out, let's just look at 2023 in Maryland. All the different places he played. So deep safety, 201 snaps there. Box, inside the box, 369. Corner, he was there 14 times. Slot, 104. Oh, and then they put him on the D-line 41 times. Yeah. You want to hold on to a guy like that. And here's what's crazy. When the Ravens lost Geno Smith, that was not fun to lose him, but we all knew it was going to happen. And he was great when Marcus Williams went down. Just beautiful depth. And it's just crazy to look back because here he is. Geno Smith just got paid. He's over at the Bengals now. Just got paid. And he deserved it. And remember, he was a 7th-round pick. And this is why when national media say, oh, I don't know, the Ravens lost a lot of pieces. And that's true. We got to watch it. We don't know for sure. But here we have not one, but 2 guys. Sanusi Kane was a 7th-rounder. And here's Bo Braid as an undrafted rookie.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what they're going to be. And remember, it took a while for Geno Smith to come on like he did last year. Like last year was his 4th or 5th year in the league. Okay, so I'm not saying that they're going to exactly do what Geno Stone did in their rookie years, but this is what the Ravens do. They let guys go and reload and count on themselves to find guys in the latter parts of the draft. They're not going to hit on all of them, obviously. But when you've got now Sanusi Kane and Bo Braid, both guys looking good, a 7th-rounder and an undrafted guy, that's good on EDC and his scouting staff.
Totally. To keep that lineage going, right? Of the Chuck Clarks, of the Geno Stones, of the
Geno Stone. Sorry, everybody's joking. Bobby wanted to correct her so bad, but let me keep going. Geno Stone.
E-Man Watts knew that I was looking at every one of those chats coming in and knowing that I'm not going to interrupt your flow.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But at some point, I'm just going to briefly mention it. Everybody. I love how my body language is studied when you have like one small little thing, right? Like that's hysterical. Chef Trez is saying I smirked. I did not smirk.
The smirk. Did you ever? I didn't even notice because when I'm in the zone, I'm not even looking at you. But it's funny because you're like nice and professional and kind about it, but the comment section, they're not having it. They're not having it.
They hold their favorite Ravens personality accountable. That's all.
Oh, is that what it is?
Maybe
Okay, I'll take that. I like the way you put it that way.
Yeah.
I like that the way you framed it.
But point being, they've had these guys, these either late round guys or ones that they've taken point as undrafted guys. Our Darius Washington comes to mind, whether we're talking safety or cornerback, that have just developed and that are still around in this league, and so Geno is one, Chuck Clark is another, Deshaun Elliott comes to mind, and so can he continue to follow in that type of path, because that's a pretty darn good one. And I know a lot of you are big Bo Braid fans, being that we got some, I'm sure, some Maryland Terrapin fans in this as well. Jonas Schaefer is a former Maryland Terp, and he had a good time with this one. He said he got his Photoshop on. He said game high 6 tackles for Bo Braid, Photoshop time, and of course, in honor of the Brady Bunch, had a little bit of fun with 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 photos of Bo Braid. The Brady Bunch.
in the Brady Bunch kind of squares that did you ever watch that show, Bobby?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad this wasn't yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so I definitely watched it. Now, it came out before my time, but they're always reruns when I was a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah. Me too.
But it's
That's what I
okay,
was referring
just
to.
making sure.
Yeah.
But no, it's hilarious that Bo retweeted this and said, "This is literally the name of my family group chat."
That is
Pretty
awesome.
much, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It should be. It's too easy.
It's too perfect.
Too easy.
Yeah.
All right. Elsewhere, you noted on Twitter or X that John Harbaugh was asked if Tyler Linderbaum. I know your fate. I'm with you on this. I am
Okay.
with you on this. John, I think I know where I'm at with you. Harbs was asked if Tyler Linderbaum and Mark Andrews, who we have not seen in weeks, will be ready. I'm sorry, we haven't seen Mark since the car crash, which he walked away unscathed from. We haven't seen Tyler in weeks because of his soft tissue neck. They reporters asked John recently
After the
if
game,
if they're going to be
preseason game.
ready
Mhm.
on Saturday after the game, if they're going to be ready for the Chiefs, week 1, the 5th of September, coming up under 2 weeks. Hello. And
Hello.
and he said, quote, "I think they will be. Yeah." So my reaction to this, Sarah, I think this is probably where you were, is it's gone from don't ask me about them because it's that like I'm that confident about it. It's
Mhm.
very minor. We're good.
Mhm.
Tyler's on Tyler's timetable is on track, and Mark is minor. He's fine. It's good. So wait
Yeah.
a second now.
Yeah.
This isn't as confident as you were sharing within the last couple of weeks. Did something change, or are you just sick and tired of being asked about it?
Right. And so the context you said that up perfectly. Is it that you're tired of talking about it or something's changed? And the context of them not practicing at all makes me wonder if it's the latter. Has something changed?
Yeah,
So it's just to me with how they were promoting, he wore his seatbelt, he came out unscathed, yada yada yada. But then how long has it been now that he hasn't been at practice?
I mean, it was the last week of your trip, so it's been
So it's been over a week.
yeah, yeah,
So, maybe they'll be back at practice today. We don't know. I don't want to sound the alarm bells,
yeah,
but when he's like, I think they will be, yeah. And he said it, I mean, if you had to hear him say it, he's like, I think they will be, yeah. So he said it somewhat confidently, but it's just crazy that they haven't been back yet. And so every day
yeah,
that they miss, it makes you wonder more.
for sure. Something to watch. Well, has there been a guy who feels more like a lock than Tylan Wallace at this point, based on where he was last year in terms of 53-man roster projections? Remember Bo Smolka noting and reminding us all that
Yep.
Tylan shared with the media last year that he sat in his car in the Ravens facility parking lot as that 4 p.m. deadline approached on cutdown day and only knew he made the team when his phone didn't ring, meaning EDC and company aren't calling you to be like, hey, awesome summer, but it's not going to work out here.
Right.
And as Bo noted, for sure, I know we both agree that phone should not be ringing this year. Tylan with another great performance. Man, he can do so much for you, whether it's actually as what he was drafted to do as a wide receiver, whether that's as a special teamer or returner, a gunner. I mean, you name it. He's sort of your do-it-all guy, and I'm happy for him because he had a great summer.
He should not be waiting in the car. He should feel confident this year. I think to the point that I think he's wide receiver 4. I know some people are pushing the 3 agenda, but I'm at 4. It just seems to me, Bobby, that whenever he gets a shot, he's always making a big play.
Yep.
And as a wide receiver 4, or if he comes in, as a third receiver and you still got, Bateman, say, is out there with Zay, and so he doesn't get as much of attention, well, he can take advantage of that.
Yep.
If you had to put all the pressure on him as wide receiver 1, okay, we've got a problem. But if you've got, Mark Andrews out there and Zay and so people are going to start forgetting about Tylan, well, he can do some damage. He can do some damage. And we've seen that whether it's on special teams or, as a receiver, he can get it done. So I love that he posted his pylon diving touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
And wrote, the way I'm running, you would have thought I stole the Lambo up at Lambeau Field. I love it.
Yeah. Well done. He's a likable guy. And speaking of playmaking,
yeah,
our guy, friend of the show, who's now getting another shot in this league with the Ravens West, the LA Chargers, Tony Jefferson had himself an
A day.
unbelievable weekend.
Yeah.
And as Doug Farrar noted on social, he spent the 2020 season out of football. He retired after 2023, took a scouting job with the Ravens, as we learned from his perspective during draft weekend when we had him on. He then changed his mind. He got the itch. We could tell. We just didn't know it at the time, Sarah, when he was on with us. We could tell that he was still working out. Remember, we asked him
we
about
knew
it
you
towards the
asked
end of
him,
it.
and he's like, "You always got to be ready."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we knew.
Wasn't willing to announce anything at that point, but I think
Right.
you and I both had a hunch. And so what does Tony end up doing? Chris Rim, formerly with, I think he was with the Baltimore Sun previously.
Was he?
Chris is now out in LA and working for ESPN.com, one of the many talented guys to have come through the Baltimore beat community. And so he forced a fumble. And at the time of this tweet, he had 8 tackles, a sack, an intercept. Didn't he have 2 interceptions when it was
He
all
ended
said
up
and
with
done?
2, yeah.
And a forced fumble, all in the first half. I texted him. I'm like, dude,
Oh, you
you're
did text
insane.
him.
I did. I'm like, because I was in the middle of a wedding weekend for sure, but like I was seeing tweets and whatnot here and there, and so I texted him. I'm like, dude, you're insane, and he just liked the message. I'm sure he's getting blown up, but
Oh, yeah.
blown up on people hitting him up. But how great is that? Good for you, TJ.
I'm going to look up. Okay, so here was his final stats. I just got on NFL GSIS. 11, hold on a second, 14 combined tackles. 14. He got a sack, quarterback hit, tackle for loss, 2 interceptions, 2 pass defenses, and 1 forced fumble.
Well,
Holy shnikes.
Listen, bro.
Trey Lance, by the way, in that one. Didn't he have he had 5 interceptions. 5.
Yeah.
5 interceptions.
That's not going to play.
Yeesh.
But TJ says, look, scouting's great, but
TJ's out here ending quarterback careers is what he's doing.
I still love the game. That's awesome. Well, the newest Raven, Nate Wiggins, grading out well so far, courtesy of PFF. A minimum of 10 snaps was the threshold here on Saturday, and he emerged as the highest graded Raven in that preseason finale with an 81-4 overall score. Bump Cooper was on there as well, 79-8. Charlie Kohler, 77-4. John Kelly, the new running back, 77-1. And Corey Bullock, 72 flat.
And in case you missed it, here's what.
Had a heck of a camp. I mean,
Sorry, this question was about Nate Wiggins. John Harbaugh, by the way, was not in the happiest of moods, which I get. I was not happy after that preseason game either.
How could you?
But despite being pretty seemingly depressed, he said some really nice things about Wiggins.
He's had a heck of a camp. I mean, he's definitely everything we thought he was, and he's going to, not that he can't get better, because he can, and I'm sure he will, because he works at it. So he's going to be counted on heavily this year for us.
Counted on heavily. Let's go. Heavily.
All right.
That boy is starting.
This was funny. Garnett, who I know is often in our live chat mixing it up and very active within the Ravens Twitter community.
Yeah.
Remember, T. Martin, Ravens quarterbacks coach, been in the building for a number of years now. Handpicked Devin Leary out of Kentucky. And being that Devin struggled this preseason, Garnett had not forgotten about that. And he tweeted out, what was the context here, though?
Well, it was just that Leary, it was after the game, and Leary had a bad game. I think he had 2 picks and a fumble, but the fumble was not his fault. I mean, he just got drilled from behind.
Yeah.
But he didn't look good, and he hasn't looked good all season, so it was kind of after the game. And Garnett's like, never let T. Martin pick his own quarterback ever again in the draft.
Oh, it hasn't looked good so far, but give the kid an opportunity to develop within the system. And T is a great court by all, every indication shows that T is capable of development, and hopefully Devin gets that shot. Clearly not ready, but hopefully gets that shot.
He'll definitely be on the practice squad.
Well, what a shocker this is. The Chiefs brought in another wide receiver.
The heck, how many do they have?
Feels like they do that every other week, but it's a reuniting as well, because since leaving Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster has been around the block and back. He is going back to Kansas City, where he won a title. He was a member of the title team. I shouldn't say he was a big part of it. I think he had a decent season that year. I think it was a couple years ago now. But, former Steeler, heading back to Kansas City. Been an interesting run for him. He got nice free agency acquisition last year. Got decent money on a really kind of underwhelming free agency class last offseason. But then it just did not work out for him whatsoever in New England. He was hurt a little bit. He was playing behind guys this summer. They waived him. They're gonna be paying him. I mean, jokes on all of us for making fun of him. He's getting paid by an employer he's not even working with this year in New England. But he's going to KC.
Well, to me, this is a sign that Marquise Brown isn't going to be ready.
Definitely not. With the sternoclavicular joint issue.
Look at you with your medical terms here.
Yeah.
Because like why else, right? Like you need, because then so they got Rashee Rice. What's his status?
Well, let's see if the suspension is going to come up before week 1.
Oh, so they could like be. I mean, if Marquise can't go and Rashee is suspended, then I'm looking at they've got Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney, now Juju, Justin Ross, who they just drafted, right? Is that the one they just drafted?
No,
who did they draft? Who's the
Xavier.
speedster?
Xavier.
Oh, there he. Oh, my bad. I'm seeing this. Okay, so they've got Xavier, Juju, Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
So they're throwing stuff at the wall here.
A little bit. Yeah. So, by the way, another gambling violation over the weekend. Zay Jones, Cardinals wide receiver. 5 games, violating the league's personal conduct policy. You would think guys understand what's going on at this point.
Don't bet on the NFL if you're in the NFL. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's the latest going on in Kansas City land, and we'll see if Juju's an immediate component of the offense in 10 days from now when the Ravens kick things off at Arrowhead. Just threw this in there because Ravens don't play the Browns in the opening part of the season, but Nick Chubb, their star running back who went down with that brutal knee injury last year.
Yeah, it was nasty.
This is not a surprise. I mean, he's not even a year removed from a horrific. Tyler Linderbaum is in a red non-contact jersey, but he is back at practice.
I see a picture of him. Oh, that's a glorious picture. Ha! This picture I'm looking at, he's got the red jersey on, or maybe you're seeing it too, but he's holding one of those blocking pads, kind of hugging it, and like his arm is massive, like his triceps.
Yep.
What a glorious picture. Okay. What about Mark Andrews? We got to get an update on that.
I was going to say, so rewind a couple minutes ago to when we were talking. We can check off one.
We checking off one.
Check off one there. But Nick Chubb's going to be down for the first month of the season at the very least. Going to start the season on the reserve PUP list in Cleveland. So that's the latest there. And let's get to our awesome, generous, fantastic first, not first ever. We've definitely gotten these super chat donations of $99.99 on like big nights where we were doing draft coverage and postseason stuff. So Tom, for it to be on a Monday prior to the season, we appreciate you. Tom Votto, $100 super chat donation. He says this: "Hey guys, love what you're doing. Do you think this year we're going to have to pass the ball to set up the run, as in previous years we ran the ball to set up the pass? I think we have to play our play to our own line strengths, which seems like it's better in pass pro." Well, if you're coming off the preseason, I guess you may feel that way, but
I definitely hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
I still say no. When you got Lamar and Derek back there,
still stick with the system.
Yeah.
How can you not, right? How can you not?
And listen, at the end of the day, let's not forget, like, if Voorhees, by the way, I watched film of Voorhees. He's good. He's just inconsistent, and he's essentially a rookie. So he's going to take some time to get there. So listen, you have Cleveland and you have McCary. If things go south, I don't care what kind of doghouse they might be in, they will be put in. So we still know the floor. And you've got Derek and you've got Lamar. And as we pointed out from that Jonas Schaefer, remember they were ranked 28th in the preseason with average yards before contact and became number 3. They're 28th right now. It's going to be different when your big guns are out there.
Tom, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it. That was super, super generous of you.
Thank you.
So practice is just underway now in Owings Mills. John Harbaugh meets with the media at 3:00. I'm sure he will start it out by.
I think Lamar's speaking today too. Yeah.
Is he? It just says Harb. It just says Harbs in what you emailed, but
oh, maybe that. Okay, I thought I saw Lamar in there.
yeah.
But if it's what it.
But
yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
Let's get to some patrons before we close. Mark and Tanner, thank you both for believing in what we're building. This is your monthly shout out because of the support that you give us on a monthly basis through Patreon. We appreciate you both. And thanks for all the support. Patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. If you guys would like to join the Vault community on Patreon, all that information can be found in the show notes below. It's a great time to do so. We're coming up on the season, September 5th, Ravens Chiefs. It kind of feels like it's going to be a busy week. I know that there's no practice the next couple of days. The guys get off as these rosters start to get fully complete. But we got a big audience today, Sarah. We're almost 4,000 deep.
I was just about to say, because you guys can't see it, but we get to see a breakdown of where all the live viewers are coming from.
Yeah.
My Twitter's going off. Something happened in the algorithm because for us to almost hit 4,000, and then you can see mine at 2744. And then the Vault YouTube page at 697. Like,
you guys have been popping off. We had over 700.
I think the algorithms for some reason is pushing this one through. This is crazy.
We had over 700.
I will say, yes, and I will say I didn't. There was news that Twitter was changing its algorithm. They were trying to like make it less like huge accounts and spammy type stuff. So I don't know if people just happened to click on this one today or if there's an algorithm is helping us because we got a ton of people in here today, but we appreciate it. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, regardless, it feels great to be back kind of in that in-season feel. So thank you guys. As always, if you've been enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel, like this video so that others can discover us if they haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we're dropping our daily live content, which is 12 noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. What else is going on here? Live chat.
I agree with Dotted Day. Good podcasting attracts people. That's
You know it. Chris, happy Monday. Love your show and podcast. We love you. Glad you're here. So awesome, guys. Well, with that, I think we'll and by the way, TweetDeck right now is popping off too. There's not anything that we need to cover right now, but you can just tell as the roster cuts loom, the next 27 hours will be filled with players that are becoming available, cuts, maybe surprise cuts, trades leading up to the deadline. So this will be fun. I'm sure tomorrow will be very, very busy. So we'll be on the lookout for that, guys. Appreciate you for popping through. Awesome start to the week. Sarah, thanks for covering over the weekend. And a special thanks to Jason Smith from Huddle It Up Films for helping Sarah break down what they felt like the 53-man roster could shake out to be coming up tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern when rosters need to be trimmed down to 53 men ahead of the season. So for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off. Go hit that survey in the top of the show notes if you haven't already done so. It'll take a couple minutes of your time. You'll be eligible, and it'll enter you in for a chance to win a couple $500 gift cards. And most importantly, it'll allow us to give what the folks around us that are supporting us brand-wise, what they need so that we can continue to do this on a year-round basis. So, partner, talk to you tomorrow in 23 hours. We'll talk to all of you. And one more special thanks as well to Tom for the $99.99 super chat donation.
Thank you, Tom.
We're off and running. What a week it's going to be. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon here inside the Vault.